Legacy leaders, I am recording this at midnight, not because I am working so much. It's because I came back from a 2 week vacation in New Zealand and Australia with my boyfriend, and I have a jet lag. And I was in this energy and mode of being reflective. And I just realized, oh, you know what? This topic of what to do if you didn't hit your goals came to mind because it is that time of year. I'm recording this December 3rd. I do have to do a shout out. My birthday was just 2 days ago. That's when I just came back. And it's like, oh my gosh, I didn't hit my goals, not just my clients, but also even myself. To be transparent, in November, my numbers were not looking that great. I'm mindful of the fact that it was elections and I was also on a 2 week vacation. And rather than going into this spiral, I'm like, okay, wait, let me go back to basics. Let me let me see what's working, what's not, looking at my dashboards. I was like, wait, if I'm going through this, I think people in my community and my podcast might be going through it. So why don't we just have a real, raw, honest conversation? That's why this podcast has the word real talk on it about it. And let's talk about goals. But even though I didn't hit those numbers in November, my number one goal in November was to be completely present in my vacation. I had a goal of not working. And I'll be honest, I 100% did not hit that goal. I did respond to some emails. So let's say I was 96% successful. However, I'm really happy I did not schedule any calls or meetings, even though there was tempting opportunities to do so. But I didn't. I went skydiving, flew off like 15,000 feet from the air with these gorgeous views in New Zealand. I posted it on my Instagram. If you don't follow me on Instagram, it's elaine_. I'll put it in the show notes. I went biking by the Remarkables, which are these mountain ranges in New Zealand that's been featured in Lord of the Rings, and went hiking. It was amazing. That was my goal in November. So sure, that goal was a priority, but didn't hit my numbers, and that's completely okay. And even back in August, I wasn't hitting these like profit margins I wanted to do. So I went back to basics. Okay, how can I cut business expenses? And you could listen to episode 95 on where I talk about how I reduced 50% of my business expenses. And I even think about over a year ago, before we moved in and got this home, I wasn't working out as much. I was probably doing once a week workouts. I don't know. I just wasn't really happy with where I was in my health. And now I am doing Muay Thai 3 times a week. And I talk about the personal stuff because we always talk about the business stuff. Look, going back to how I could support you. I know December just started. We have one more month till the end of the year. A lot can happen. Also, why do we need to put a deadline to finish everything by the end of the year? What if we could plant seeds? What if it's rolling and it could be next year too? So this episode is for those of you who are feeling anxious about not hitting all your goals, what to do, how to stay focused, and also how to embrace that you are human. All right, let's drop the beat.
Hey, I'm Elaine Cartas. I'm a business and career coach for women of color and allies. LA Weekly awarded me the #1 thought leader, and Apple News named me one of the top 5 business coaches. Done doing the most as a woman of color or ally, and you want to create your own definition of success and happiness? Well, grab your coffee, tea, or boba, and let's do some business and career real talk.
In this podcast, I wanted to simplify this, give you 6 tips on what to do if you're not hitting your goals. And the first one is, what's your personal values and priorities? Unfortunately, whenever we think of goals, we always think it has to be work and career oriented. I always thought about it in school. Okay, how can I get straight A's? How can I do all these overly academic things? But what about your personal values? What is important to you? Like I shared earlier in the intro, my goal for my vacation was to be present for myself and with my boyfriend. And even in my personal life, my priority is to be flexible, go with my parents to their doctor appointments, doing at least moving my body 3 times a week because it energizes me. I just became realistic. Like, you know what? 3 is my goal. As much as I want to do 5, I'm just going to say 3. And it's looking at things holistically. Even when I work with clients, I have them do this holistic self-assessment. It's a life balance wheel. You could actually Google life balance wheel, where they got to assess and reflect their different areas of life, from health, social, romantic relationships, family, and other areas in their life that's important. So think about it. What's your personal values and priorities? Second is, we think so much about the future, but there are lessons from the past. So what can you learn from the past? Whatever you're going through right now, I always ask my clients when they are feeling stuck, okay, can you reflect back on a similar situation in the past? What did you do to get out of it successfully? For example, for me, when I was in undergrad, I got about 30K in undergrad debt, and I had a goal to get out of it. So I was in my mid-20s. I looked at my expenses and I learned how to reduce. I left my 1-bedroom apartment in NoHo, North Hollywood Arts District, and moved into Alhambra in San Gabriel Valley in LA, where I had roommates. I had 4 roommates, and I shared a bathroom with 2 male medical students. And I'm a girl. Ladies, we love having our own restrooms, but I shared it. And guess what? I got out of debt in a year. So in the beginning of the year, as I was mentioning in my podcast episode 95 that I recorded back in August, when I improved my profit margins, increased it by 50%, I went back to looking at my cash flow, looking at all my expenses, and deleted things that wasn't helping me and focused on the things that was increasing my revenue. I went back to basics. I had difficult conversations of ending contracts. I also stayed focused to look at how I was getting clients. I kept contracts where I was still working with my coach and my mentor because I knew that that was going to help me. And notice, okay, this is how I'm getting clients, renewals, referrals, Google SEO, and to stay focused on that. This meant I wasn't focused on the glossy, like the I'm going to post on social media every day and do everything all at once. And trust me, I did that. I used to do Facebook Lives every day, but I stayed focused. I even think about when I was working at Pasadena City College Foundation, my boss would always say, look, we're not trying to be like these other big nonprofits. We are this is what we are focused on, and this is our goal. And I really appreciated that because it just kept me and the team grounded to what we are focused on and not look at what everyone else is doing, because it's real. The Goldie Shiny Object Syndrome, seeing what everyone else is doing, it's easy to compare and think, okay, if they're doing that, I need to do this. But rather the question is, what is working for me right now? I also want to share, sometimes you might realize that what has been working for you is no longer working for you. And you need to shift and change. And that is scary. I'll talk about that in another tip. And even figuring out how to do less of what is working, how to be more impactful. Like how I do this podcast 2 times a month. Well, except last month, I only did it once because I was on vacation. But it's because I've been focused on the quality over the quantity. I'll be honest, I had another topic that I was going to record a podcast on. It was actually the theme of how I prepared to have a 2-week vacation. And then I checked in with myself. I actually even looked at my data, my marketing dashboard, learning from the past, right? That's the second tip, learning from the past. Like, okay, I did a kind of similar podcast because I did do a 2-week vacation. I went to Tanzania, which was amazing. I didn't even bring a laptop. But I did the goal of being 100% really well there because I did not work at all. I did not bring a laptop. I did bring my laptop in this trip, but I digress. Let me go back. I was looking at the data and I was thinking, I don't know. I also am very intuitive too. I'm like, I don't think people want to hear about that. I think people are feeling anxious that they didn't hit their goals. And it tends to be that year, right? It's after Thanksgiving. You see your family members and friends and like, oh, didn't you say you're going to do this? Or where are you at with this? And then you're like, oh. And even let's say those goals are not your goals, like it doesn't align with you, it still makes you feel uneasy. And it makes you think about, like, wait, even though my mom, my dad, a family member asked me about these goals, what are my goals? What do I want? So, trust me. And it's also magnified for me because my birthday is December 1st. So I get really reflective on it. And I don't know if you're like me, but when I'm in an airplane, I get really reflective and emotional. And that's what I was when I was in that airplane. I'm actually reading a book right now called Hidden Potential by Adam Grant. I decided that was going to be my book that I was going to read for my birthday and on that plane ride, which has been extremely helpful. Okay, going back. So I decided to change the podcast that I'm recording for you because I looked back, okay, what do people want to learn? And it's usually like learning from my mistakes, being realistic, being honest. I think that's why I loved Inside Out 2 so much, because they showed this character Joy where people think they have this goal to be joyful all the time. But the negative or the shadow side of joy is delusional. Now, I want you to think about that situation in the past. What did you do to successfully get out of it? It's interesting because clients always come to me like, hey, give me the tips. How do I get out of this? And I could share it with them, but I also remind my clients and you right now, we are different humans and individuals. So what can we learn from the past that we could take away and move forward? And yes, I will give you tips, advice, and strategy, but you also have agency and choice if you want to continue doing that. All right. The third tip, be specific and realistic. It's not all or nothing. I say this because I tend to be an all or nothing type of person. And I'll give an example. I often meet with clients and we talk about personal goals. And it's like, okay, I want to improve my health. Like, okay, let's put metrics in it. What can you do? I want to work out every day. Like, okay, but you're not moving your body or working out now. So you're going from 0 to 7 days a week. And I challenge them. How about we increase it gradually, but we do a good starting point. So I want you to look at your calendar. What's realistic? And when they look at their calendar, it's like, okay, 2 to 3 times for 30 minutes. All right, let's start there. So are you just putting a big number? What is realistic? And even for me, like I shared earlier in this podcast, like I want to work out every day. I do a minimum of 3 workouts a week. I mean, mind you, in my 20s, I did 5 to 7 times, but I do 3. And I do keep track of it. That's another thing. When you're being specific and realistic, do keep track of it. I put my workouts in my calendar as if it's a meeting. So scheduling them and when it happens. And if I put something in my calendar where I had the intention to work out, but I didn't, I deleted it. So I knew. And I color coordinate it so they know. It's like a purple color on my Google Calendar. Not saying you have to make it purple, but just so it stands out. So that's another thing. So I could look back in the other weeks of like, okay, I worked out 3 times this week. I worked out 4. I worked out 5. To be transparent, when I was on my vacation, I didn't necessarily like go to a gym and work out, but I did about 20,000 steps a day. I went hiking, I went biking. So I did a lot of physical activity, and that's what counted for me. So be specific and realistic. 4th, consistency. Go back to basics. Just a reminder, those Olympic athletes we saw at our TVs and phones this past summer don't just magically appear to the Olympics every 4 years. They were consistent in their trainings and practices, not just at the gym, but also mentally, emotionally, and spiritually. I shouldn't say past tense, but I love Simone Biles talking about how she consistently went to therapy, especially after the Olympics prior, where she had the twisties, a gymnastics term for having a mental block to move your body in the air. And to make sure she didn't have twisties again, but not just for the Olympics, but even for her mental health, was being consistent, going to therapy every week, Even during the day of her performances during the Olympics, she talked about how she went to therapy. So I want you to think about it. What can you measure to do consistently? For example, I have a client, she manages 3 individuals, and for her, it's a soft skill. So that's a goal. She wants to work better in her communication. She tends to be more reactive and emotional because she's a first-gen immigrant, similar to me. So what she does, a practice, is prior to having meetings with each person she manages, she writes out scripts and practices and then communicates to them. So she's not in that reactive and emotional stage. And now, after a couple months of working together, it's becoming more natural for her. She's also measuring when she is reactive, which still happens, but she's not so much. And more importantly, her team's hitting her goals.
Legacy leader. I know what you're thinking. Elaine, you have such good stuff here. I want more. So if you want more tips and advice for your business, career, and life, sign up for my Gifts and Gifts newsletter at elainelu.com/join. That's JOIN. And here's 3 things you'll get when you join, because I'm like Santa Claus. I love giving. Number 1, funny gifts, because who doesn't love memes and pop culture references? This newsletter is so fetch. Number 2, receive actionable gifts. That's business, career, and life tips that you can start doing today. Third, the gift of me. Not only do you get my wins, but also my failures, my reflections. My Gifts and Gifts newsletter is like an up-to-date diary. Think Zanga or Life Journal for my fellow millennials, where I share vulnerable stories, relatable mistakes, and important life tips like what to watch on Netflix, like when's the next Bridgerton season. So if you're ready for those fun gifts and actionable gifts to create a more sustainable life, then join my newsletter at elainelu.com/join. That's JOIN. All right, let's get back to the episode.
So going back to basics, I think so often we forget, how can we measure this? How can I practice? And how can I keep track? So for example, in my own business, I have dashboards for everything. And I consistently look every week at my numbers and dashboards. So I'm not just reactive, but I am proactive. I have a sales and leads dashboard. I have a marketing dashboard. I have cash flow, projections, which I call generational wealth. Even each of my client has their own accountability doc, and I'm even working on creating a dashboard so they're even more successful in their goals. So how can you be consistent and go back to basics? All right, 5th goal, stay focused. It's not about doing everything, it's staying focused. In my business, I'm not trying to be this big social media influencer. I've owned that I want to do my coaching business similar to an Ivy League and liberal arts school, where I work with a limited number of clients, 24, and charge a premium rate because of my attention to detail. And more importantly, I care about my client results. And I know with that, it's not about having a big following. I know looking at my dashboards and trackers that I mentioned earlier, when looking at my sales leads and marketing and money dashboards to keep track, it's my referrals, my renewals, and Google SEO. And when I have ideas, like for example, this podcast episode, I'm talking about what to do if you don't hit your goals, I have data to back it up. Like when I was looking at my marketing dashboard, like, okay, what if I do a podcast instead about what if you didn't hit your goals? And I look at all of the emails and podcasts that I do that have to do with mistakes, and they do really well. And it's not just me, but I think we are coming off of just reality and we want to hear people be human. You know, we're on Instagram, we see the highlight reels, but we don't see the behind the scenes, like, let me cry like a starfish moments. And that's what I've gotten from my marketing dashboard. People want to hear the reality of it. That's the reason why I have the name Real Talk in my podcast, because it's real talk. I've shared this in other podcasts where I was considering, I had this opportunity to be part of this podcast network where I need to increase my downloads. And to increase that, it's a formula of getting big names in here, but I don't do that. I get podcast pitches all the time from people I don't know, but I don't interview random people. I interview friends, clients, even family members. Well, I have one, which is my brother, but I should have more family members. But stay focused. I pride myself on client results and how to improve experiences. So for me to stay focused, I actually sent a couple of emails with clients I've worked with for a couple of years where I want to get their feedback on some updates I want to do in my coaching. Oh, another tip when you're not hitting your goals, ask for feedback from others on how to be better, from others that you feel safe with. And if you want to stay focused, it is important to stay accountable. Maybe it's having a friend. That's why workout buddies work out so well. Like I have two good friends who I do Muay Thai with, and we text each other, "Hey, want to go to the gym? Who's going to go to this class?" And maybe it's not necessarily a workout buddy for the gym, but maybe it's something else in your life that you have a goal on, but a family, friend, or loved one that you could reach out to. Or maybe you do need someone like a coach. And it's what I do with my own clients to ensure they hit their goals. And if you want to see if it's a good fit, you could schedule a call with me at elainelu.com/call. All right. 6th tip, celebrate and reflect. Don't be afraid to change. I always start my coaching calls with clients. Hey, what are your wins, both personally and professionally? And they share their wins. Because so often I think when we go into meetings, okay, let me just lay it on you. Let me lay it on you with what's working, what's not working. I need help with all this stuff. But we forget to celebrate small wins. So even though I didn't hit the numbers in November, small wins is I closed 2 speaking gigs right before my trip, 2 paid speaking gigs. I also have a number of calls this month for potential clients, potential companies I'm going to be working with, and other speaking gigs. So even putting those numbers together, I was like, wait, even though I didn't hit my numbers in November, I'm going to be able to make it up this month in December. Also, make sure to reflect and take time to reflect. Maybe you realize something that you've been doing for all this long, you no longer want to do. I think about how I was working in political campaigns and I enjoyed doing it. It was really great doing it. I was a fundraiser, but it started burning me out. And I didn't give myself time and space to think about it. I just went from campaign to campaign. See, campaigns are like short-term jobs. They last until election day. So after you work on a campaign for 2 years, 6 months, a year, it ends, you go to another campaign. I got in this cycle of like, okay, a campaign ended, I'll go to another campaign. But I never gave myself time to think, do I really enjoy doing this? Does this match and align with the life I want? And so there was a moment where this campaign ended, the candidate lost, and I did give myself time and space to think about it. I was working with a therapist and a coach at the same time. And I realized I don't want this life anymore. I mean, it works for other people, but it doesn't. I thought it was a failure that I was going to leave because there's this kind of like, oh, only certain type of people are able to survive campaigns. I'm like, no, I can't do this. And I made that courageous act to leave political campaigns and then go into nonprofit fundraising and work at Pasadena City College Foundation. Loved my job, loved my boss, loved my team. And then it happened again. And it wasn't the same way where I was getting burnt out. I was just getting bored. Things were going slower. I did miss the fast-paced innovation with campaigns. And then graduate from my master's and realize, wow, I've been listening to everyone but myself. What I want to do, I want to do coaching. And here I am. 7 years later, I've worked with 10,000 plus clients, have 3 online courses with LinkedIn, courses with Ivy Leagues, prestigious schools like Brown and Penn, Johns Hopkins and USC, and I really enjoy it. But even in my own business, there are things of like, I'm thinking of changing this, and I'm reflecting on it, and I'm asking for feedback, going even to my own clients. So don't be scared, because we're humans and we evolve and we have different stages in our life. And maybe it's as simple as, it's December. Maybe you do have big career goals, monetary goals, but it is the holidays. Maybe you have certain family members coming to visit. Maybe you just really want to enjoy the holidays and the Christmas spirit. Maybe that's your goal. And it's okay if it changes because it goes back to goal number 1. What are your personal values and priorities? All right. I could keep going on more tips, but I wanted to keep this episode short and sweet. I will sum up the 6 tips on what to do if you didn't hit your goals. 1, reflect on what's your personal values and priorities. 2, learn from the past, because if you could uncover what you did in the past, it could help you with what you're stuck with now. 3, be specific and realistic. Look, I had that lesson of being delulu and realized, okay, how can I be specific and realistic? Looking at my dashboards and my data from the past. 4th, consistency, going back to basics. 5, stay focused. I learned this from my former coaches from Accountability Works is I have 3 goals for each quarter. That's it. 3 goals, not more. 3. We're humans. We work best with 3. That's what I focus on. So 6, celebrate and reflect. Don't be afraid to change. And here's my big action item for you after this podcast, because I know it's a lot. Go journal for 15 minutes. Put the timer on. Go somewhere that's very relaxing. It could be a coffee shop. It could be your backyard. It doesn't have to be your computer. It could be your phone on notes. It could be your journal. It doesn't matter. See what comes up for you. If you didn't hit your goals up to now for the year, do not beat yourself up. I want you to come from a place of curiosity, of what's happening and not happening as data points. Maybe a goal is no longer aligned. How can you change it? Maybe you realize you need to dig deeper because there's mental blocks. And what happened for that is I went to therapy. Or maybe you just need a kick in the butt and strategy and you need a coach to hold you accountable. And if you do, you could schedule a call with me to see if it's a good fit at elainelu.com/call. So if you enjoyed this podcast episode, here's 4 things you can do if you feel called to do them. Number 1, if you could leave a 5-star rating and review, that would mean a lot to me and my team. We created this podcast for accessible education for women of color and allies. And each episode takes about 4 hours to create, 1 hour for me to prep, and another 30 minutes to record. Then my team spends another 2 hours to edit and market. And number 2, because I care about accessible education, share this with a friend who's struggling on not hitting their goals. 3, don't forget to hit that follow and subscribe button, because when you do, it allows the podcast platform you're listening to know how important this podcast is. And 4th, if you need support in your career business and you're interested in working with me, then schedule an introductory legacy business and career review call directly with me at elainelu.com/call. That's ELAINELOU.com/call. I only bring in 2 to 4 new clients each month to ensure each client receives the results they deserve. And I can't wait to connect with you soon.